Hey everyone, Tactics here with my second title route walkthrough of The War Within Season 1, where in this video I'll be taking you through a plus 14 Mists of Tirna Scithe, showing you some of our pulls, some of the skips we do, and some other tech that we use in more coordinated groups. Since this is my advanced route, I cannot recommend it for pugging, but if you are looking to push for that 0.1% title or just looking to challenge yourself, this is a good place to start. Also, of course, link the MDT string down in the description below if you want it, but do keep in mind this is mists, so the maze area is random from run to run, so it's not necessarily going to line up, so you will need to adjust your count at the end of the dungeon depending on what your maze looked like. Now let's get right into the video here, where of course we're going to open up the wall off the top. Herbalism, druids, high mountains, nelfs, taurens, a bunch of things that can open this. You do want to have that in your group because you get a pretty substantial gain from the mushroom room, which we're going to be going into shortly here. First pull though, with the paladin, prod paladin in the comp, we do find that this left pull right here with the double harvesters is significantly easier in terms of duration, because the tank buster guys, they also have a buff on themselves that causes them to heal themselves for damage done, and these harvesters on the other hand don't do that. You can easily lock them down with a prompt paladin and then everyone else kicking the other one, and so this pull becomes significantly faster. And also of course the soul cleavers do the most tank damage by a lot in this area, and so it lets you do this pretty decent count. This pull will be more count. One, of course, because there's more mobs in it. There's only 2 harvesters here versus the harvester and 2 soul cleavers. So that will give you more count. But again, it's going to take a little bit longer. It's going to be a little bit more dangerous for your tank, but it is going to prevent you from having to do a little skip here, which is doable with any other combat drop. I believe not a combat drop, sorry, a threat reduction. I believe Soothe is enough, for example. I'm not sure if Sap and Imprison are enough on their own. I think what we do is Soothe and then we just shroud the whole way. But basically, this is a pretty easy pull. We spend cooldowns on it, and we do not lust it. We are saving lust for the first boss to ideally kill that boss in as few phases as possible. On this key level, the goal is to 2-phase the boss, even up to a 15. You probably want to try and 2-phase it. Once you start pushing above a 15, it starts to becoming in the 3-phase territory. So like I said, we threat reduce with the mind soothe, then we just hug the left wall here. We shroud just to keep going. This guy does have true sight, so you can't just not hug the wall. And then again, throw out a soothe or a sap, and we keep going straight to the mushroom room here. I'm gonna open up the mushroom room, and you're gonna see me go past the pack here, and I'm actually gonna pull the giants down. And the reason for that is we don't really have cooldowns, right? Because we just spent cooldowns on the previous pull. So I'm going to, there we go, get the life grip. Pull these guys into this room, and there's a couple reasons for this. One, because we don't have cooldowns, we want to spend some time hitting these guys until they hit the 50% range, and that's usually around on I think on a higher key level where we would get our cooldowns back. And so you can heal through this without the extra danger of having all the extra mobs here, and then you can chain into that pack with these 2 guys at 50% health, and just generally it becomes much more even in terms of overall health pool in this pull, and it makes it just a lot nicer overall. Good target count, cooldowns are lined up, all that good stuff. In this room as well, you can actually use the mushrooms to your advantage. You have a couple options. One, you can pre-grab a buff, but also something you can do is during the AoE, taking a mushroom full heals you. So a tech that people used a lot back in Shadowlands was they would stand near a mushroom during the push. And you can see we're pushing both of them at the same time is what we're going to do. And just halfway through the channel, or when they started getting low, they would eat the mushroom right next to them. One thing to keep in mind, you can't have more than 1 mushroom buff. So you can't get both a purple mushroom and a green mushroom, and you always want to leave the room with a green mushroom buff because that's the stats. Purple is just stamina. So you can use this one to heal yourself and then pull a green one while you're leaving, or some people will just get a green one ASAP. As long as you don't die, it's going to last until through the whole first boss and that stuff, and that's all you really need it for. Anyways, I do also throw out Blessing of Protection on our Disc Priest here, so that he can just kind of plant and ignore everything going on. And then our dragon, you see our dragon walks out, gets the mushroom over there. He heals himself, and it's pretty straightforward. Now they're done, and I'm leaving. I'm getting my mushroom at the exit, and we are kicking these guys in. And now we do all this pack together. I probably could have left a little bit sooner. These guys got significantly lower, and like I said, on a higher key level, it would be it'd be more healthy and this would line up better. I think what actually happens here is we send our cooldowns and this pack dies very, very quickly, and we end up going into the boss earlier than we actually want to, and our cooldowns don't come up for the first actual burn of this boss. So that ends up shifting our lust a little later, so we end up lusting the second burn. Things get a little desynced. Basically, what the goal would be here is that pack would live a little bit longer, and then you'd be able to go into this boss and you'd be able to delay slightly by hitting Ingra on pull because he doesn't have his DR yet, a little bit, and then pushing the tree just around when your next set of 2 minutes would come up. That's the goal, and then you would lust that. So that would be ideally what you do. It's not the end of the world because you're never going to get 3 lusts, or 4 lusts rather, in this dungeon anyways, because of how you're doing it. So you have quite a bit of time. You can delay that first lust, which is why we end up doing the lusts how we end up doing it. We just hold it for the second burn instead of the first. So you can do that in a pinch. But the goal and what would happen on a higher key level is that it would be lined up for that first burn. So I mean, not a ton to talk about here. There's a few important pieces of utility to have. The main one is some sort of fear break. So Tremor Totem's the common one this season. Warriors also do have a talent that does an AoE fear cleanse with their shout. So that's another one. If you're running with a warrior, nice piece of tech there. They can also do this. Otherwise, we're just kicking the boss here. What you will notice is once the shield goes up, Embrace Darkness, that is the DR shield. That's when Ingra starts taking reduced damage. Once that goes up, you will see that we start letting our enhancement shaman get the kicks. And this is something I kind of briefly mentioned, I believe, in the City of Threads video. But basically, shamans have this talent where they can stack up a DR against the School of Magic they interrupt. And because the shield the boss puts on himself right now pulses for shadow damage, kicking the Spirit Bolt actually gives the shaman a DR against that. So you will see that, like, now that our shaman is kicking on cooldown, he becomes one of the tankier people because he essentially just has a large DR up the entire time. I actually think my auto shield might have yoinked that kick from him, which is not ideal. And you can see here now, boom, the guy's dying. And again, we're just a little bit desynced because we're just over 4 minutes now when we push. And again, our cooldowns are not exactly on the, they're on 2 minutes, but they're not exactly synced up with this. I think they come up in like 10 seconds or something like that. So we end up not lusting here because we don't have the CD. So this was a 0 CD push essentially. And then we end up putting damage directly into the tree. This is a hard tree hit. We do not really worry about cleaving Ingra. This is something you would normally do on the if you CD'd the first burn with Lust. You would spend quite a bit of this time cleaving off of Ingra onto Droman to get more Ingra damage, because again, 24 seconds until Ingra becomes immune. But we are not doing that because we have that reverse CD timing. So we are putting all our damage into Droman here, and you're going to see we're just kind of rotating around in a circle as a group. I guess something to note, these swirlies are somewhat player baited, right? They're player proximity baited. So you can see we kind of move together as a group to kind of bait these puddles in a spot, and then we just continue rotating around. That's how we deal with it. And again, you're going to see us focus the tree here. Tree pops, Lust goes. Lust goes a little early. You can Lust a little early, especially if you're getting late in the tree because you've been holding the tree damage a little bit. So feel free to Lust a little bit early, as long as, of course, the full burn duration is covered by Bloodlust. That's all that really matters. So we Lust a little early there. And then this is going to be all of our CDs going into this burn. And you're going to see this guy start to melt. And we are going to two-phase this boss here all the way down. And again, it kind of depends on how long you have CDs for in terms of when you can commit to killing that boss before the next shield if you don't kill it in the burn like we did there. So kind of depends on your comp and how much damage you still have running. But that is something a lot of groups will tend to do if they don't quite kill him. If he's at like 10%-ish, sub 10%-ish, usually you can continue damaging Ingra and kill Ingra before the shield comes up. Now, here, a couple things to note. I think a common tech, watch Mistweaver. We're going to put a mark on Mistweaver. You can see the first 2 doors without needing to do the puzzle at all. You can see the first 2 doors Mistweaver goes through, no matter which one it is. So that helps you. You don't need to solve the maze there. The other thing, and probably the bigger thing, is we are going to pull the pack through this wall. Now, there's a few ways to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to use the Evoker. He's going to stand at the back of the hill, basically, and he uses his hover charges to get above the wall, where he uses Spatial Paradox on our healer to extend his own range, and then he can tag the pack over the wall. Druids can do a similar thing. Boomkins can like disengage Flap and do a similar thing from the top of the hill. I've heard apparently you can stag form jump if as any druid and potentially get that. I haven't seen that successfully done. I've seen the boomkin flap though. The other thing, any pet classes with controlled pets can do it. So hunters can send their pet, warlocks send their pet. I believe DKs can send their pet as well. And then there's another tech about being a gnome, and you can like be a gnome on like one of these edges and actually see under the wall. I think Korime, if you guys know her, she has a short kind of explaining that strategy and doing it under the wall. So if you're a gnome, or if you are transformed into a gnome via one of the gnome toys like the Millhouse toy or Pygmy Oil, you can shoot under the wall, assuming you have 40-yard range. So bunch of different ways to actually get this pack. You're going to see the dragon come shortly, and you can see Miss Caller go here, and you can see she goes down the hill. So we can see the first 2 doors, and now I'm going to move forward here, and I'm going to pick up this guardian. Be careful, especially doing this strategy. You see the evoker runs away, because if the evoker is kind of in line of sight of this guardian, when he crosses the wall, the guardian insta-tank busters. So 1, evoker, run up this wall to be safe. 2, tank, go pick this guardian up quickly. This is a little unlucky with this defender because we get trapped in here, so not super ideal. So we're going to end up being very, very limited on space. So be aware of that. Also, make sure someone does grab that seed. You see, we did get a death there. I believe that's from a bite. I believe that was a bite death. Bites are super dangerous in these high keys. So that is something to be aware of. You can't quite see the target when the bite goes out. So you need to be very, very careful. You want to be topped. Sometimes, if you're especially a swishy class like Disc Priest, it's good to, if you have an evoker, put scales on them specifically, or just like pre-defensive, like a pre-fade or something like that, every single time the bite happens, pre-power word shield, just to make sure that you don't get one-shot by it, especially as the key levels get higher and higher. So this makes this first 2 pull instead a nicer pull size. And then we go through, and like we said, we know it's this way, so we keep going this way. And then this is just maze stuff here. There is a weak aura that solves the maze for you at some point. I think our evoker has it. He's doing with that. Otherwise, it's pretty normal stuff. Expel can be dangerous. And basically, the other thing too with this pull, and a couple of the pulls, Stinger plus Stalker or double Stalker can be very, very dangerous if they wombo combo someone. So what you will want to do sometimes is use either a single target stun or just some other form of CC on one of them to desync them. That can be very, very useful, because if they pick the same person, right, that's exceptionally dangerous, because that can just instantly just one-shot them basically with no reaction time. So you need to be careful. Also, I believe that was these puddles. Puddles tick very hard, so you need to make sure you are staying away from those puddles as well. Very, very dangerous. But yeah, the desyncing the Stalker and the Stinger, or the 2 Stalkers, if there's 2 Stalkers in the pull, is very, very valuable. This is another wall pull. So there's 2 areas in the maze where you can pull through a fake wall, and then there's this area where you can just pull through a real wall. So the 2 other areas, I don't have a footage of this, of course, mazes RNG. It's 2 other mini bosses, basically. Mini boss rooms are kind of where you're suspicious walls can be fake. But on the left side of the maze, on the left wall, there's one that I believe has a... actually, I guess it's not always a frog anymore, but there, you can pull a second mini boss through the left wall, and that is suspicious depending on the mini boss combo, but it's a lot of count. And there's another mini boss that's kind of more center left in the maze, and that one has just another fake wall that you can hit a pack through if you have 40-yard range. That is kind of similar to the fake wall that I'm going to show you at the end of this, so I'll call back to it there. This one, however, again, pet classes are going to be able to do this one, but prot paladins can also pull through this wall here. I actually do mess it up initially, but basically I'm going to use the auto Avenger shields from, and here I messed this one up because I'm not actually facing these mobs. So I'm going to reposition, but I'm using the auto Avenger shield from Divine Resonance to actually pull through the wall here. So you're going to see I reposition there. My next proc is in 3 seconds, so I back up, I target this mob, Avenger shield goes through the wall. So that paladins can do that one. Obviously, pet classes can do that one. And this adds a pack, which is not super, super dangerous. It's double defender with a stinger. So there's no dog. The dog is definitely one of the most scarier mobs in here for everyone else, and the guardians are the scarier ones for the tank. Doesn't have either of those mobs in it, and only has 1 kick. So it's a pretty nice pack to do on top of the mini boss here. And again, just adds pretty solid count. Just be aware of Pool of Radiance here. If you do it with the dragon, that will heal a lot. So you need to keep moving. That's this guy, though. Keep moving through the maze. And again, at this point, our auto solver is on probably. So it's telling us exactly where to go. This pull is very dangerous if you want a triple guardian, because this has a 1 guardian and then there's no wall here. And there's another pack with 2 guardians. I think our initial plan was to just nuke the... Yeah, initial plan was to nuke this guardian and chain. But as you can see here, what I was just talking about, the Stinger and the Stalker syncing up, and just look at our enhancement shaman, right? They literally sync up and they just both cast at the same time directly on our shaman. He's dead. Nothing. There's no reaction to that you can possibly do, which is why desyncing these mobs is very, very important, specifically when they're ever in the same group. So just like now you would stun one of them and that would prevent that from happening, right? So we wait for him to come back, and then we move into this pack. Again, anytime there's a double guardian, your tank is in extreme danger. You need to always make sure you have some sort of defensive plan for these double anima slashes. Obviously, you know, things like Warrior 2. Warrior makes this a little bit easier because you can spell reflect one of the debuffs, which is pretty useful. But generally, like, my plan is, as a paladin here, is like I'll commit a bigger cooldown to the first one, and then you have spell warding or bubble for ones as well. I probably should have done bubble for this one. That would have let me have spell warding later, because you're gonna have bubble as a much lower cooldown, but that's okay. And then we go through here. Another pretty normal pack, nothing too much to talk about here. And then we get to the wall pull that I was referring to earlier. So this is the one we didn't see, but basically some of the walls, the actual walls, not the miss walls, are kind of fake. And so this is one of those fake walls where if you have 40-yard range, or maybe even a little less than 40 yards, I don't think I have 40 yards there, but you can just hit the nearby stalker through this wall and pull it in. If you have Lust and CDs, a lot of people will pull this on the boss. What you need to be careful about is making sure you are putting damage into one of the guardians, not necessarily dumping all of your damage into the boss, unless your tank is readily available and knowingly, prepping for this pull, because it is double guardian, and double guardian on the boss can be very scary. And if you are pulling this on the boss, make sure your tank is not assigned to a kick here on this one kick guy, because then you don't have a kick for the boss necessarily, and that's bad. Your tank does not like not having a kick for the boss. So I think this doesn't quite line up, but like I said, higher key level, or if we had gotten that first initial Lust that we wanted to get, if we had lined up our CDs slightly better, we would have had Lust here, so we would have potentially pulled this on the boss and put priority target damage into a single guardian, and then once that guardian died, swapping to the priority damage on the boss, because taking one guardian is not a big deal. It's really the double guardian that is the problem with the stacking dot that they apply, and they always seem to go back to back, right? So very, very scary to do that. And actually, we do that as well. Even we kill the second guardian instead of sitting here hitting one guardian. We just go straight into boss. This boss, there's no real tech, and honestly, it feels like I talked about this a little bit, but like, so for a long time at the beginning of the season, it was very, very responsive to actually hit the Vulpin and the intermission ads with these dodgeballs. But you're gonna see here, like on some of these intermission ads, like it feels like it's been almost fixed, because like 90% of the time we will aim dodgeballs directly at a mob. And I mean, this might be one of those times. So we're going to aim dodgeballs directly at this mob probably. It's going to go out and it's going to do 0 damage probably. Yeah, 0 damage. You can see the health didn't move when the dodgeballs. Usually early on in the season that would deal a big chunk. I haven't seen anywhere that's been fixed. And like randomly, like I said, like 1 in 10, it does actually do damage to the clone. So I don't know what's going on, but it seems like generally it's been fixed, but still sometimes it does damage. So you still want to do it, just most of the time it doesn't do anything. And I don't know if that's on purpose. I know there's been patch notes throughout the season saying, oh, it doesn't hit unintended targets, but then it was still hitting all these Vulpins and the clones. So I don't know. But generally it just seems like it doesn't really work anymore. So not too much to talk about here, right? Vulpins go out. We actually use these guys for funnel a lot of the time. So you see us a lot of the, whenever they stand in melee, we'll use like a stun on it so that we can funnel the damage into the boss. Like the rogue gets a bit of extra damage. I don't know if shaman gains that much, but the rogue gains a bit of damage from doing that. I think I've gained probably a very minor amount of damage. So like there. Oh, perfect example. Randomly, this one works. Oh gosh, it just happened. Let's go. We caught it live. Like randomly, this one works. Clearly that works. 30% in one hit. That's not anything else but that. But then literally every single other one in this entire poll didn't work, as I was showing you earlier. So I don't know. It's weird. Okay, boss is dead. We're jumping down. I think we actually just forgot to bloodlust, by the way. Like I said, you'd want to bloodlust that pack or the boss or one or the other or together, whatever. Sometime around there, you'd want to bloodlust, basically. And again, that would be before, usually much before the 20-minute mark. And so again, you'd then have your last lust for last boss. We're going down, get the seed. Pretty common skip here. Any threat reduction on this mob is all you need. And this is a pretty standard first pull, double pull this side. The whole thing you're gated here by is staghorns. You never want to pull more than one. You want to keep 2 kicks on the staghorn. I believe it's 2 melee kicks, so you can, have a range on the same spot or whatever. We keep 2 melee kicks on it because we have them. We are going to grab these Reavers as well. Acid Novas are danger. Remember, this debuff in the Acid Nova, not only the initial hit, right? You saw how low everyone got here with this initial hit, but the debuff the Acid Nova actually applies to you increases all your nature damage taken, which includes this circle around people. If you have that circle when an Acid Nova goes off, you're in danger. It also includes the Spine Reaver, their Dispel, their Poison Dispel. So we're using things like, we have 2 poison spells here from me and the dragon, and we also have Poison Cleansing Totem in this dungeon, and he drops it at some point in this pull here, just to make sure that, it is cleansing people, and then you can withdraw it and drop it again. And that is pretty useful for whenever you are pulling these Reavers, which I believe there's a little bit of a break, like the next pull doesn't have Reavers in it, but this one does, and you could do like the third pull would be more Reavers, so you can have Poison Cleanse Totem every time that happens. But again, there's 2 Reavers. We have 2 Poison Dispels. We can kind of get them like that. Moving forward here, next pack, another double pull. Something to be aware of both this pull and the previous pull that, Melee will yell at you about is the larva. The larva put a nasty puddle on the ground. That puddle absolutely owns you, especially, again, if you have this nature damage increase and you touch that puddle does more damage, right? So you want to make sure, you can see I'm slowly kiting here from the larvas as they die to make sure melee have more than enough room to be spread out. You can see 1 melee kind of on either side of the boss there, as you saw. Initially, they can move when, circles like that drop, and they can still have enough room to be on the pack while not owning the other melee or the tank even, because those circles do tick quite hard. It's like at this key level, I think it was like 1,000,000 per tick for those circles. So like they are not insignificant amounts of damage, especially if you Venn diagram them. So just be aware of that. At this point, we are done count because we had a pretty good count maze because we managed to get 2 packs through the wall, right? The one right before the boss and the one with the dragon. So we got a lot of extra count in the maze. Usually what you would do here is you would drag this pack all the way across to the pack beside the boss on the other end, because that one has another one of those kick guys that you're gated by, and you would do those guys together. That's what it's going to be in the MDT string. We had so much count in our maze that we don't need to do that. We could probably do this on the boss. You don't need to. You're not going to have lust here usually either. We were debating it, but you're like, oh, we'll just kill it. Whatever. We have so much time, it's kind of irrelevant. But if you were pushed for time and this was all the count you needed, you'd almost definitely pull this on the boss and lust and pop. Well, you wouldn't lust, but you'd pop CDs with this on boss. One thing to keep in mind, I don't know if this still happens, but back in Shadowlands, some of these mobs were attached to like some achievement, and the whole bit was like if they touch the big this cocoon, like bad stuff would happen basically, and you could have that happen accidentally on a push key. So you need to be careful if you do pull these guys on the boss. I don't know if they still do that anymore, but if they do start running away from you towards the cocoon, you need to like stun them or stop them from doing that, or like Ursul's them or something. Just prevent them from getting to that cocoon. And just generally, that's why when people do pull trash on this boss, I've seen is they pull the boss like to the edge of the room with the trash. Like they don't tank the trash over here because maybe there's some proximity thing with this cocoon. So just be aware of that. There's some weird achievement stuff. Do not make that mistake. That would be very, very bad to break a key on this. So, this boss. This is how we play the Acid Expulsions. The entire group is stacked up on one spot, and we are always going to dodge right. Boom. Same direction. Doing this throughout the whole fight makes these super easy to dodge. We have the first incubation. The lore with this incubation is apparently these larvas from 100 to 70% just never fixate. So they will just have an aggro table. So from 100 to 0, or from 100 to 70% rather, tanks just pick these guys up and tank them by the boss and just keep them down. From 70 to 0, so the next 2 phases, they will actually fixate. for whatever their fixate duration is, and then they have an aggro table until the next ad spawn, and then they all fixate the new fixate target. So again, tanks can pick them up if you just kite for the duration of the fixator for whatever reason, but generally, again, you don't want to get hit by these guys too much. They don't deal a ton of damage, but they're definitely are just extra damage you don't need to be taking. So again, Mind Link's going to be coming out here. Now, at this point, this is where your tank would either leap out away from the group and then come back, or your tank would immune. So I believe I'm going to bubble this. Yeah, I'm going to bubble this. But like I said, like at this point, like if you were, Demon Hunter, Warrior, you would just leap away, insta-break it. And I don't have an immune up for every single time, so you're going to see me like steed away sometimes here. It's just when you do have an immunity, you can just immune it and not move. And then I believe, we push mid this, so you get a little bit of a milk here. You want to make sure you are having a defensive ready for this consumption. Just have something available. Healer needs to have some throughput ready for this, because this will start to hurt a lot, especially on higher keys. And then we just regroup here. Probably could have regrouped next to that, but it's not the end of the world. And we just keep rotating. Like I said, like it's a super neat line, and it's going to keep being neat. I can another immune here. Next acid expulsion. You're gonna see what this looks like. Boom. We all move right. Again, it's not super complicated. You just keep moving, and because we're going around in a circle, it's not super hard. Sometimes, again, once you get later in the fight, and I'll fast forward it a little bit here to the third phase. Again, look how much this chunked. Don't get hit by a swirly. Use defensives. Have ceiling throughput for this. Even this one's super easy. I think there was one later on where it gets a little bit more challenging. Yeah, maybe this one. Yeah, you see where you have to basically keep either running in whatever direction you're running in. So it can get a little bit harder, but again, even this was not that hard. We just keep running right, and it's fine. So that's kind of the strat here. Involves you to stay grouped, which is beneficial for stacked healing as well, right? So it's not all negatives there. It's a little bit more movement maybe for some people. And there's a steed. There's a steed break, for example. It didn't have any immunities left, so I just steeded out. And again, we're just kind of using chain CCs on these larvas to keep them locked down and make sure they aren't nuking. Whoever they're actually fixating. AoE slows, AoE stuns, knockbacks, those kinds of things. Just very, very useful here. And again, by positioning here, it's quite easy for mailing to the knockbacks to kind of cleave them and still get boss damage value from that. But that is it for this video, guys. Hopefully this helps you out. If it did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like it. I'm going to be releasing the rest of my Season 1 advanced routes over the next couple of weeks here. And of course, City of Threads is already out, so check that out over on my channel. Otherwise, shout out to all of my Patreons for their continued support. And I'll see everyone in the next video.